This baseball season will never end, and one thing that will never end are twofold with the Mets. One, somebody will get drilled, and they won't do a damn thing about it. But the second thing that won't end, and it is driving me nuts, is every other day there's a new rumor that the Mets are either shopping Pete Alonso, shopped Pete Alonso, will shop Pete Alonso, will trade Pete Alonso, and quite frankly, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of hearing about it. I don't think it makes any freaking sense. And as a Met fan, it absolutely disgusts me. The idea of trading Pete Alonso, who goes out and plays every effing day, who hits 40 home runs every single year, who gets better defensively year to year to year. The idea that this franchise is going to trade him, came close to trading him before the deadline, will look to trade him during the offseason, is mind-numbing. And as a diehard fan, it pisses me off to no end.
Evan, embrace the reality, buddy, because he's just another long line of a guy that you guys as Met fans overrate just a tad bit. And the best thing for this organization is to move on and get a haul because you're not winning anything the next 2 years. He's going to be 30 in 2 years. Giving him a 7-year deal, if now money is an option, is a mistake.
Well, first of all, money is not supposed to be a problem with this owner.
Clearly it is.
Isn't this what we were told when Steve Cohen bought the team? Like, one of the things I was most excited about was not just buying big-time free agents, but was keeping our own. This is a franchise that hasn't had guys who've spent their entire career with the same team. We haven't seen a lot of that. Ed Kranepool doesn't count. They tried with David Wright. It obviously ended badly. I think this is a businessman, and Steve is a businessman, that has no emotional heartstrings the way us fans do. Look, they walked away from Jacob deGrom. They did. They didn't give a crap about you. And it turned out to be the right decision, and most Met fans were okay with it at the time. And obviously we could look back at it today and say, hey, they made the right decision. It was a business decision. I think a part of why they're looking to trade Pete Alonso is a business decision. Well, and I don't understand the business decision.
Hold on here. Wasn't part of the beauty of Steve Cohen taking over as the Mets owner, aside from the finances and not having to worry about the Wilpons never being involved in free agents, wasn't part of the beauty that he was one of you? He was a Met fan that was taking over. So how could you sit there and say, it's tugging at the fans' heartstrings? He's a fan telling you as a fan with the business aspect, this is not in the best interest for this team long term.
Yeah, because I'm telling you that watching him now for a few years, we're learning more about Steve Cohen. And that's one observation I have about him. That I don't think he cares about the emotional attachment a lot of Met fans have for Pete Alonso.
But that's good. That's a good thing.
No, it's not a good thing because here, first of all, what do you think you're going to do with Pete Alonso? Trade him for lottery tickets during the offseason and hope that one of those guys turns out to be 60% of the player that Pete Alonso is? Is that really the best case scenario?
Evan, you should get more than one lottery ticket. Guys like Pete Alonso, who averaged 37 home runs a year, aren't available on the trade market. And clearly a team trading for him, I got to think, has an inside track on signing him long-term. And clearly, Steve Cohen, who we have alluded to, business, not business, is not afraid to spend, has already sent the message that he wasn't going to go above and beyond signing Jacob deGrom. Smart move. And in this aspect, you know what? He is a Met fan. He does feel, the temperature, whatever's in that clubhouse. He knows that the best interest of this team is to get the haul you get.
So emotionally, I was wrong about Jacob deGrom.
You're right.
I was. No, I admit that. I screamed and yelled as a diehard fan that understood this will probably be a bad contract, but go do it anyway because it's Jacob deGrom. And I was obviously dead wrong about that. There really isn't negative to giving Pete Alonso a 5 or 6 or 7 year deal. There really isn't. What's the worst that could happen? Like, is he going to go backwards? The guy goes out and plays every single game. Even after he gets drilled by a pitch, he comes back the next day and says, I want to be in the lineup. He didn't even want to leave the game on Saturday. Like, I don't see how trading Pete Alonso or not re-signing Pete Alonso serves any benefit. There's no risk in keeping him. There was a risk with Jacob deGrom, which I understood. I was emotionally blind a year ago, but at least I was able to take a step back and understand why. I don't get the Alonso thing. You develop a guy. He's one of the most. He is the most reliable slugger in Major League Baseball.
Right, plays all the time.
He works his ass off and gets better defensively every single year, which he has. If you don't see that, you're not watching, and that's okay. Why would you not want that guy here for the next 7 or 8 years? Why?
Because he's going to be 30 and playing every day in Major League Baseball. While it is a huge coup, there's got to be some thought in 4 years. Pete Alonso could start breaking down
Why?
at 33. Why not?
Why?
33.
Isn't he
34,
Adonis like Giancarlo Stanton who pulls muscles on
that's
muscles?
a little
No.
different, though. Giancarlo Stanton pulls muscles. He doesn't break down.
Yeah, but Pete Alonso has given us no indication of a player that's going to break down. I've seen nothing since he's come up here in 2019 that leads me to think, hey, injuries are going to eventually be a problem. What is that even based on?
Evan, I will say this.
What?
And I would take Pete Alonso on the Yankees, so it's going to come across a little hypocritical. I don't have the emotional attachment you do. You have an owner that you know is willing to spend, who is clearly allowing either himself or Billy Epler to entertain these trade talks. He is telling you the best interest in the business side and for this team is that we get a haul for Pete Alonso, and that change from what has been the reality of the Mets, and with all due respect, Met fans, of thirsting so much for your homegrown talent that you tend to maybe even overrate them a little bit. And I think Pete Alonso is probably overrated a little bit.
I would rather pay my own guys than pay other guys.
Oh, really? So
Yes.
you wouldn't rather have Matt Olson have had the opportunity to sign him in the offseason?
I'd
than have
rather
him?
keep my own guys who've done something for my team than pay other guys. That's what the Yankees have done, right?
Yes.
I don't want to do that.
But they've paid the wrong guys.
Okay.
So now we're assuming that Steve Cohen with this money, who has just told you in this reset with trading Scherzer and trading Verlander, now you don't trust them to sign the right guys.
Well, in this case, I don't know. I don't trust them to trade Pete Alonso. I don't trust them to get a haul back, let him go somewhere else and not re-sign him. No.
What if you signed Juan Soto in a year?
Well, first of all, obviously Juan Soto is a better player than Pete Alonso. But why wouldn't you just sign both, or why wouldn't you sign your own guy first? If you've got an unlimited amount of money, why does it have to be a choice? Why?
Look, this goes back to...
Tell me why. Why does that have to be a choice?
And I will tell you why. This goes back to a very touchy subject around these airwaves. We could keep dancing around it all we want.
Go ahead. What's that?
There's clearly something up here in the locker room. I'm not in the locker room.
I don't buy that crap.
How could there be that much smoke around this? That much now openly entertaining the trade talks of Pete Alonso?
Okay, I'll tell you why.
Okay,
I'll tell you my theory on this. Pete Alonso and his people want a haul of a contract. They look at Aaron Judge's contract. They want a massive, massive contract.
Okay.
The New York Mets look at Pete Alonso and say, we like you. We don't want to give you that massive contract. We're so far away in terms of what you want and what we want that, you know what? It's just not going to work out. Now, if this is the case, if my theory is right, my approach to it would be, I'd say to Pete, look, no one's giving you that. We're going to keep you because you give us a chance to win next year, where supposedly the Mets are still trying to win. They're not kicking the can and giving up on next year. And then go to free agency. Kind of dare him the way the Yankees did with Aaron Judge. And if someone comes back and gives you this monster offer, we then have the decision of either matching it and saying, wow, you turned out to be right. We should really keep you. Or you got to come back to us and accept what we have been offering. But to give up on it, to just throw in the white flag or the white towel, whatever the hell it's called, and give up on it this offseason, to take back lottery tickets, which is essentially what minor league prospects are, is lunacy to me.
Evan, something is broken with the New York Mets. And you're not getting rid of Francisco Lindor. You're not getting rid of Nimmo.
And the only way to fix it is Pete Alonso? That's ridiculous.
Well, the other way to fix it is throw more money at other players coming up. This is broken. They have been a losing organization for a long time.
They're not broken because of their two best players.
Well, they were. Alonso got hurt this year. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Not his fault.
They're broken because Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer underperformed.
Well, their lineup wasn't great all year either. Starling Marte being hurt killed them.
So what you do to improve the broken lineup is you take your most reliable player with 40 home runs a year and you trade him away.
You just accumulated, 5 prospects in the top 101, okay? How many more do you think you can get another 2 for Pete Alonso?
Prospects, and this guy...
But that's how you could turn and flip them to trade. You don't have to groom every single one to be a starter.
Now you're flipping them for somebody else?
Yes.
No.
They need to rethink the whole way they have built this thing.
They need to add...
It is a rotten core.
They need to add toughness in this locker room. That's clearly been shown. Lindor just wants to hang out with every opponent he sees. No one retaliates for anyone being hit, let alone just Pete Alonso. So, yeah, I would argue in this offseason, I want to add toughness to this room. If Ray Knight still existed in his prime, you'd add him. But I don't think you take away your best players, your most reliable players, and say, well, the only way to get better is to break apart what you have.
Well, what does it say about that room when you've now seen them get hurt versus Atlanta? The team did nothing. and you see him get hit in the neck, and basically the team does nothing.
Well, the team is
okay.
The team is soft. The team was soft last year.
But shouldn't the team be rushing to the defense of Pete Alonso if he's that crown jewel piece there?
They don't rush to the defense of anybody. Like last year, did they rush to the defense of anybody?
Well,
it doesn't matter who gets hurt.
So
you can turn it into just Pete Alonso. It doesn't matter who gets hit. This Met team has shown this year, and they've shown last year. They don't do a damn thing about it.
Evan, you can't get rid of 11, 12 pieces on this team to change them not doing anything about it. You could get rid of Pete Alonso for a haul, and it changes everything. And for once, the Mets have ownership and leadership that's acknowledging we are not winning a thing with this core as it is constructed, and we have a piece that, on its best day, would we rather everybody be kumbaya and keep Pete Alonso? I'm sure. But this is a unique opportunity with 1 year left on a deal. And you saw, by the way, the Boston Red Sox turned out all right at the trade Mookie Betts. And I know that he's a better player than Pete Alonso.
They turned out all right?
Are they not constantly relevant? We keep thinking they're going to fall off the flag.
Anybody in the city of Boston, if they regret that trade, and I think 98% of them would say, yes, we do.
Do the Dodgers have a World Series without a bubble? We don't know that.
It doesn't matter. And there's no Red Sox fan that's happy with trading Mookie Betts. In fact, when you look at all these massive trades.
They have not been.
When you look at all these massive trades of superstars over the years, the team trading the superstar doesn't end up usually in a better place.
Well, what place are the Mets in now? Last.
Yeah, but this doesn't make them better necessarily.
You keep saying this, Evan. I really understand where you're coming from.
Do you, though?
It's an emotional attachment that you and a lot of Met fans have.
Yeah.
And by the way, we all do this in New York with all of our guys. When you have a unique, homegrown talent, we overrate them in our minds and don't look at the best interests of the team.
What's he overrated at?
And
playing every game, hitting 40 home runs every game.
And we love the guy. Met fans did this with David Wright for a long time.
But what is Pete Alonso overrated at? I'm curious.
Pete Alonso plays every day.
Yes.
Plays a great first base.
Not a great first base, but he's gotten better.
Very good first base.
Yes.
I like him defensively first base. Hits a ton of home runs. Okay,
yes.
That should check a bunch of boxes in Major League Baseball.
So what's the issue?
Why aren't they more of a winning team the last 2 years of Pete Alonso?
And you think it's because of him?
He's supposed to be the homegrown leader of this team.
You think it's because of him?
And he's the face of the team, absolutely doing nothing.
This is the problem. This is the crap.
Collapsing versus San Diego. And this year, they've been a disaster. Pete Alonso, even since coming back after he came out with Atlanta, didn't tear the cover off. And he says nothing to fire up and inspire the team.
This is what's been driving me nuts. We look at every reason why they suck, and you put it on the guy who deserves less of the blame than most. You put it on him.
But it's not
as opposed to the Met rotation and Max Scherzer underachieving and Justin Verlander underachieving and Edwin Diaz not pitching this season and this manager being abysmal this season.
But he's also the movable piece. He's also the movable piece out of all of those guys. So that does play hand in hand. Is it all on Pete Alonso, everything I said? No. But he's also the movable piece out of the handful of 5 guys that should be the face of this organization that change a freaking rotten core. You should embrace the fact that you have ownership now that's willing to spend, that's willing to do the thing that's uncomfortable to most Met fans. And if that means trading Alonso, and by the way, you're not trading him for a bag of balls. You don't want the lottery tickets, fine. They're going to get a haul for him.
The idea that the Mets have this rotten core, which I've heard repeated over and over again, you just did it. I don't know if it's based on any kind of reality. The
reality is where they are in the standings because the core sucks.
Oh, they suck this year.
It's not just because of Verlander and Scherzer.
They're bad this year because of their core. They weren't bad this year because they couldn't pitch. They weren't bad this year because their bullpen was awful at times.
Yes.
They weren't bad this year because the mercenary pieces of you-know-what's underachieved at an incredibly high level. They're not bad because Carlos Carrasco has a 7 ERA. They're not bad because all the fill-in starting pitchers that they needed were worse and worse.
Was Carlos Carrasco or Justin Verlander the reason the Mets went hapless into the night versus Joe Musgrove in a Game 3 versus San Diego?
But what does that have to do with it?
But that's all part of it. The resume of last year's collapse, starting with Atlanta. I mean, the fact that they went out in 3 games versus the Padres in that stupid first round.
They fell down the stretch?
And set up this year.
Yeah, it was set up by Max Scherzer. It was set up by his horrific performance in Atlanta. It was continued by his performance at Citi Field when he got booed off of the mound. But let's ignore him.
And it was continued by having to thrust, and he's been great now, Alvarez into that series in Atlanta and think he was going to hit. There was, it's not just on Scherzer and Verlander as bad as they were.
The collapse from last year and this year on their best players, to me, is crazy.
The best players represent who you are as a team, and who you are as a team is gutless. They're gutless.
I agree that
both of our teams here are gutless.
I agree that they're gutless, but I don't think necessarily fixing their gutless issue is to take their best players and trade them away for young lottery tickets. You have to add to that locker room. There's no doubt. You have to add toughness to this locker room, but subtracting Pete Alonso does not make sense. It makes the Met road to success that much more difficult.
You're not getting Ohtani and whatever. That's a whole different issue with the injury, too. You can't roll out here with Lindor, Nimmo, Alonso, McNeil. Like, that can't be your big four next year. Well, Alvarez obviously included in that.
Why not, by the way? Why not?
Because they're not any good together.
Well, they're not good together. Clear. What is this, like a basketball team where they don't play well together? They're a baseball team.
When you traded the pitchers, which, again, by the way, you had a problem with that at real time, too.
Because they were giving up.
Okay,
yes, yeah.
They were giving up. It's not like this lineup basically had to bail out, too. This team has still been lifeless at times since that trade. You don't have to just give up as a team because your organization's trading players. They have no heart. And Pete Alonso was supposed to be the heart of this whole thing. And if it's not his problem, then whose is it? And find me the fact where they could be moved get you the haul back. It's a double-edged sword.
They need better players. That's what they need to do.
And how do you get better players? Trade your best player.
By taking your best player and trading them away for prospects.
It's uncomfortable, but it's the right thing to do when you finally have competent ownership that's telling you that that's what they should do.
Disagree. We'll get your calls, 877-337-6666. We got a look-see at Aaron Rodgers over the weekend. We'll get to that. Plus, the Yankees faced maybe their biggest embarrassment over the weekend on the field and off the field.